Hello, welcome to the home of the Ghost Owl. Continuing our look at the laws of magic for Warhammer The Old World, we're now on the law of illusion. Let's see what the spells look like. And first up is the signature spell. It is Glittering Robe. This is an enchantment. It has a casting value of 8+, and you cast it on yourself. So, until your next start of turn subphase, enemy units suffer a -1 modifier to any rolls to hit made against the caster and any unit they have joined. Other enchantments in the target unit may immediately expire. Do you know, I like this. I can see this having lots of value. It doesn't specify rolls to hit in shooting or combat or anything. So it's a -1 modifier on any rolls to hit made against the caster and his unit. So I think you're going to have value in at least, 2, 3, maybe even 4 turns if you include some shooting in that as well. I think this is a great signature spell and definitely one to have in the arsenal. It's got a relatively low casting value as well. But it does mean that you're probably going to have your caster in a unit that is probably got enough value for you to want to have this type of spell on it, because you want to try and keep them alive. So that's just something to consider. Is this going to be more of a battle mage style spell, or a traditional wizard sits at the back, in a unit of archers or something like that? But yeah, I think this is pretty nice spell. Okay, first of the main spells is Mind Razor. It's a magic missile. It's got a casting value of 7, which is the absolute low end of casting values, and a range of 15, which is also the low end of magic missile ranges. The target enemy unit must immediately take a leadership test. If it passes the leadership test, it takes D3 strength 3 hits with AP of 0, which is pretty lackluster damage, right? If it fails the leadership test, it does D3 plus 3 strength 4 hits, AP -3. Okay, what do I think on this one? The thing, look, anyone can fail leadership test, but you work in laws of averages and probabilities, is that units that you're going to want AP -3 against are generally going to be pretty elite units that can take that much armor that it matters, right? And generally, if they're an elite unit that's taking that much armor that it matters, they normally have pretty damn good leadership. So getting that enemy unit to fail its leadership test, yes, it can happen. The likelihood of it happening is low. And the issue I kind of have with this is you kind of want to shoot a high armored unit with it, right, to get the benefit of the AP -3. Because if you're shooting some core basic infantry unit, the AP -3 doesn't really mean a damn. Okay, you get your average of your minimum of 4, average of 5 hits, strength 4, pretty reasonable. And if they pass, you're doing your D3 strength 3 with no AP. But in reality, you want to shoot this at those high armored units, but at the same time, those high armored units are going to be probably the ones that are most likely to pass the leadership test. So unless you're able to combine this with something that can reduce leadership, so we'll have a look as we go through. If there's more spells in this law that reduces leadership with a hex, which means it's done before the shooting phase, then I could see a combination working here where you reduce leadership and then you do the Mind Razor. If there's nothing else that reduces leadership in this spell law, then I think this has less value as a spell overall. Add that to the low range as a magic missile. So that's my take on it. Let's have a look as we go through. If there's something here that can reduce leadership as a hex before the shooting phase, then this could be more useful than it first appears. Okay, Shimmering Dragon. This is a conveyance spell. It has a casting value of 8, range of 12, which is reasonably low. Can only target friendly characters. You can target if his character's not fleeing and has not already moved it gains fly 10 till the end of the turn. Do you know, again, it seems pretty niche. Characters out on their own are often mounted already, which means they're going to have pretty good basic movement characteristic if they're not already on a flying mount. So how much value is fly 10 going to be? Minimal value. Range 12 means that, you know, you've got to be in range of the character to do it. And do you really want to be putting it on characters that are in units? No, because you can only target the friendly character. So giving a character in a unit, you'd have to have him out of the unit to get the benefit from it. Seems more like you'd put it on a wizard to get him to fly around the battlefield a bit more to do stuff. But that seems a bit of an edge case, a bit of a niche thing. Again, you sit there and go, how many times am I going to cast this? Not very often, it would seem. I don't know. At the moment, I'm not feeling this spell has huge amounts of value. Let's look and see what else there is. Column of Crystal. It's a magical vortex. There's a casting value of 10 plus, so it's on the upper end, and it's got a low range of 9. I think it's one of the lowest magical vortex ranges we've seen. And it's a 5-inch blast template. Right, so you've got to place the middle of the template within 9 inches of the caster. There's a big old blast template. So whilst in play, the template does not move and counts as impassable terrain, which no line of sight can be drawn over. So at first glance, I was thinking, okay, we've got a casting value of 10, it's got a low range, it's a blast template, but it's a 5-inch blast template which becomes impassable terrain, and you can't draw a line of sight. This could have massive impact on the game, right? Immediately blocking out a flank, so one of your units can't be charged in the flank because the enemy unit now has to wheel around it. It costs them too much of their movement to be able to wheel round and make the charge. People can't shoot over it, so you could protect a character from being shot by a cannon, for example. You know, there's all sorts of cool things I think you could do with this. Like I say, anything, this definitely feels like a protection / movement disruption spell. The blocking line of sight, like I say, could completely render a war machine, you know, unable to shoot a key target. It could you know, stop charges in their tracks from the enemy, and really turn the initiative of the battlefield into your favour, because you know where you're going to put this thing, and of course you can remove it when you want to because it remains in play. Now that's not to say, of course, you can't write your entire strategy around it because the enemy can dispel it. However, it does give them some challenges. Right? It does give them some challenges. You can't rely upon it, but this could have really, really good value if you can keep it on the board, at least for the enemy's turn. You could really disrupt their plans. Like I say, blocking shooting, blocking charges, and essentially protecting your flanks or protecting key characters would be massively valuable. So I like this one. I like this one. Next up is Confounding Convocation. This is a hex, has a casting value of 9 and a range of 9. Okay. Right, so immediately I'm struggling with this spell. I have to cast it in my strategy phase before I move. I can only target an enemy unit, and that enemy unit has to be in 9 inches before I move. So you have to have finished the end of the enemy turn within 9 inches of his unit. It remains in play. While the spell is in play, the target unit becomes subject to the stupidity rule. which they can pass, so it could have no effect, right? Could have no effect. I don't like it. The range is too low. Far too low. I mean, stupidity, if the unit becomes stupid, I mean, that's massively in your favour, but, you know, how often are you going to cast this thing? You know, when you get to cast it, it's going to be the latter part of the game, right? Unless your wizard is running up the field, or unless your wizard is, I mean, maybe if you've got a wizard mounted on a big old dragon or something like that, and he's flying around the battlefield and he's getting in combat and, you know, he's getting close to the enemy. Yes, but he has to be close to the enemy, but not in combat in the strategy phase to cast this. Yeah, not a massive fan. Spectral Doppelganger Assailment. So this is in the combat phase. Casting value of 9, so it's mid-difficulty. That is one of the higher casting values required for an assailment spell, I think. A single enemy unit the caster's engaged in combat with suffers 2d6 hits. That's pretty good. Using the characteristics, special rules of the caster, and any weapon they carry. I mean, you'd have to go and build something. You'd almost be specifically building around this. And of course, you're rolling randomly, right? This isn't a signature spell. But man alive, if you had some sort of battle mage that had a magic weapon or was actually pretty decent in combat, and you were able to give him his own attacks plus 2d6 hits, right, with some magic weapon, and any other benefits he might have as his character, this could be really, really good. This could be really, really good. Wow, okay. Again, you kind of got to get lucky enough to randomly roll the spell on the character that you want it on. But it could be very, very nice indeed. Okay. Miasmic Mirage. Now this is a hex. It's got a 15-inch range, so that's more palatable because that means you've got to be within range, 15-inch range of the enemy during the strategy phase before you move, so that's okay. Now, it's got a casting value of 11, which is pretty much the highest casting. In fact, that is the highest casting value you can have, certainly in the Laws of Magic in the rulebook. So it needs to have some pretty good effect. So until your next start of turn subphase, a target enemy unit suffers a -2 modifier to its movement characteristic to a minimum of 1. Other hexes on the target unit immediately expire. -2 to movement? I mean, it's -2, so it's pretty reasonable. It doesn't feel like a casting value of 11, though, I have to say. Geez. To get a -2 modifier just to movement, it doesn't affect initiative or any of the other stats like we've seen in the other spells, to warrant a casting value of 11 on a range 15 hex, and it cancels all other hexes on the target unit. I don't think that's worth a casting value of 11. You know, I'm comparing it to what we've seen already. And yeah, it doesn't, you know, I mean, it's like anything. Every spell can have value in the right scenario, but when you compare it to the other spells and how often you're going to use them and what they do, this doesn't seem great at all. Overall, the illusion lore, I'm not enamored with. I still go back to battle magic, demonology, and dark magic. Gut feeling from what we've seen on paper, they seem to be the laws that certainly would suit me and that I definitely prefer what was in them. And going back to that first spell, the magic missile, Mind Razor, there were no other spells in the lore that reduced leadership. And therefore, that spell doesn't have anything that can make it work better. So I think it's of limited value. Like I say, the units you want to shoot with AP -3 are the ones that are probably going to have the highest leadership, and therefore your probability of then getting the casting value you need, and then the enemy failing that has high leadership, really puts the laws of probability against you getting value out of that spell. So Law of Illusion, it's not doing it for me, I have to say. Let me know, guys, what you think of Law of Illusion and how you might want to use it, and if you think it's better than I do. If you like the video, though, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. And as always, if you want to see more content, hit the subscribe button. Free for you to do. Takes a few seconds for you to do, but is a massive deal for me. So thank you for that in advance. And thank you to those that have subscribed already. You've been watching The Ghost Owl, and I'll see you all very, very soon.